Here's the one and only time we had to listen to Melissa Bean in this 2010 election cycle. While there are many various issues, due to time constraints, I'm going to show and talk about just two divergent issues: cap and trade and education. My goal is to provide you with nothing but the facts.
Well, I'm proud to support cap and trade legislation.
Cap and trade is nothing more than the birthing of a new market out of nothingness through regulation and legislation. Entities have already been set up, the market already assembled to buy and sell carbon credits. It would create a multi-billion-dollar new market. It's like Y2K on steroids. But where is the money going to come from? If they penalize companies for their carbon emissions and regulate how much they have to pay to buy carbon credits, those costs are going to skyrocket. And we all know costs roll downhill. Example, jack up the cost of gasoline, and the cost of produce we buy in the grocery store goes up to cover the gas cost. In short, everyone's utility would necessarily skyrocket. Everyone's.
It's also important to know that there wasn't a single business in the 8th District that was emitting enough to be hit by the caps. So that's important to know as well. But
Bean's point is entirely moot. I can't believe she would make such an ignorant statement. Either she is just fully relying on the Dem Party to provide her with talking points, or she really believes people in the 8th are that gullible. Either way, here's Joe Walsh's response.
It would handcuff our economy. Congresswoman Bean says there wasn't a business in our district that might have met the cap. It's a tax on energy and electricity. It would be the largest tax, if passed, in our history. It's an indirect tax on every business, on every household, on anyone, even in the 8th District, that uses electricity. It would hobble our economy. It would decimate manufacturing in this state and this country. We need to drill. We need to drill offshore. We need to drill on our land. We need to explore nuclear power. We've been quiet on that front for too darn long. We need to look at clean coal. We need to lessen our dependency on foreign oil, but that's got to come from us, from American-made stuff, and not a tax which will handcuff our economy.
So there's our two candidates. Melissa Bean wants to introduce a new industry whose only purpose is to create a whopper of revenue from the private sector. Joe Walsh sees it as a boondoggle that will cripple our already fragile economy. The second issue is education. According to a 2005 report from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, annual spending per student on its public schools in America is more than $11,000 per child. Despite this high level of funding, public schools lag behind the schools of other developed countries in the areas of reading, math, and science. This is the heritage of the Department of Education. Between 1960 and 1995, U.S. public school spending per student, adjusting for inflation, increased by 212%. Out of 21 industrialized nations, U.S. 12th graders ranked 19th in math, 16th in science, and last in advanced physics. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development places the United States 18th among the 36 nations examined in quality of education, yet our cost per child are the highest in the world. These are just the facts.
Education is one of the most important investments we can make, recognizing that in a global economy we have to graduate the skill sets that can compete. And that means also investing in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I've continued to support appropriations in that area and will continue to always prioritize education funding.
But like so many issues we argue and debate about, we're arguing about how to get there. We've had a Department of Education for 30 to 40 years, and you can't show me one statistical analysis that anything at the federal level in the Department of Education has done any good for our schools. Our schools are state and local issues. To improve our public schools, we need to cajole and encourage competition into the system.
Okay, let's compare. Melissa Bean ignores the utter failure of the public school system and wants to fuel it with more money. Why? Understand, most of her money comes from unions, especially education unions, who benefit from Democrats. The unions fuel up with taxpayer dollars and then funnel that money back to campaign coffers. It is estimated that unions have dumped more than $400 million into Democratic campaigns in just this election cycle. Joe Walsh sees the problem clearly and wants to remove the bureaucracy that has done nothing to further better education, remove the wasteful spending, and place our schools under local and state control where it belongs. One wants to feed the monster. The other wants to starve the monster. What do they have in common? Both of them are talking about your tax dollars.